help me survive was actually stopping me from thriving. It's simple to me. You just don't give up. Just believe in yourself and, make it happen. Like right now, I'm living my dream. I didn't even know this was my dream. I've never had that because I'm 100% delusional. I showed up to Barnard from the South Bronx. I was like, this is where I belong. These are my people. It kind of destroyed everything, which is crazy. And it was something that I was not prepared for.
Welcome to First Gen Fridays, a limited series by Dose Podcast, highlighting first-generation Americans. My guest today is the self-proclaimed pivot queen, actress, comedian, and cycle breaker. Please welcome Jasmine Ruiz. Puerto Ricans are not immigrants, right? But they do go through that experience of being that international immigrants do. So it's such an interesting place and experience to live. So if you could give us a little bit of context of your own journey with your Puerto Rican heritage to understand your own Puerto Rican identity.
Yes. So when we had that conversation, just to give some context to the listeners, you reached out about being on the podcast, we're telling immigrant stories. And I just wanted to be clear, I don't actually have the stereotypical immigrant story. I wasn't translating documents for my mom. And, that's not something that I can relate to. It's something I hear often. I have so many friends that I know that have that story. But for me, my dad from PR, but wasn't really around in my life. And my mom, she's also Puerto Rican, and, her mom's from PR. But she was born in the 60s here in New York. And she actually grew up in foster care. So she didn't grow up with Puerto Ricans, at home. She grew up with Italians at home. And so, my foster grandmother was Italian and my mom was Puerto Rican, but she was raised by Italians and my dad wasn't really around. And at some point I got a stepdad and he was Puerto Rican and he brought a lot of Puerto Ricanness, Puerto Rican culture into the household. He brought his congas and he would play them all the time. Now, granted, growing up, my mom always played salsa. She loves salsa. So I'm not going to say my mom, don't know nothing about being Puerto Rican. She loves salsa. She cooks so good. My mom made really good Spanish food, Puerto Rican food. But we just didn't have the language. So I always grew up with the music. I grew up with the food. I didn't grow up with the language. And then, he came in.
And maybe the traditions, the cultural traditions, or part of it.
I think a lot of Puerto Ricans, of the diaspora, I think we've lost so many traditions, whether it's Three Kings Day, not to say some people don't still celebrate it here in New York, but people lose those traditions and recipes. I don't know anybody that actually knows how to make tembleque. You know what I'm saying? I don't even like tembleque, but yeah, a lot of things I think Puerto Ricans of the diaspora lose. And I think part of that is very much on purpose. A lot of people wanted to assimilate. At the same time, I think the government made it, difficult for people to bring that over. And yeah, so for me, I always tell people I get more Puerto Rican every year. Now I speak Spanish, learned it mostly from my friends outside and in school too. I did take it up in school too. A lot of my Spanish is mostly Dominican Spanish because I have so many Dominican friends. I do everything I can to learn my own history. I feel like we're never going to learn that in school. We never did learn it in school. And I think Puerto Rican history is inherently anti-American history because the United States colonized Puerto Rico. So there's no learning Puerto Rican history in a way that paints the United States in a pretty picture. So for that reason, we're never going to learn it in school. So if you really want to learn your own specific history, you have to teach it to yourself. So, I try to just read a lot of books, educate myself. I try to learn new recipes too. Shout out to Mia's Cocina. I took a cooking class with her on how to make pateles, which I've done before growing up with my mom, but it was just really nice to take a formal class and get that refresher because it's been forever.
You paint such a positive journey, and I love that you took that upon yourself to learn this culture that in a different lifetime maybe would have been there right away and it would have been a second nature, but you have to be really intentional about it and spend time and spend money taking that class, you know. So I love that personal accountability and responsibility and choice that you made to be so close to your culture.
I think a lot of people are in survival mode, and I think it prevents them from doing things like what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I do want to say, like, a piece of it feels like a luxury to me to be like, you know, yeah, I'm going to go read these books about Puerto Rican history because I have time to do that and I care. And I'm going to, you know, take this cooking class because I have time and money to have hobbies or whatever. Or, you know, I'm going to take this salsa class. Oh, yeah, I'm really good at salsa. Like, I'm nasty with it. You know, so I feel like being able to do that is, I don't know, something about it feels like a luxury to me. And it also feels very much like a responsibility. And I feel like it depends on kind of who you are as a person, on whether or not you want to take that route. So for me, I am very much like, I have a rebellious spirit and a revolutionary spirit, I think, in a way. And so for me, I'm not comfortable not knowing where I come from. I'm not comfortable not knowing my roots. And so I want to learn that. Also, there's the whole fact that it was literally robbed from all the Puerto Ricans of the diaspora. You know, we should have been growing up on the island doing island things. But that wasn't the case. So yeah, and that was so purposeful. And it was a government objective to, you know, Americanize the Puerto Rican people. And I'm very anti that, you know. I just want to learn my roots and my background, and what I feel being Puerto Rican is. And I think when people stop you from doing something or try to take something away from you, you're either like, okay, and you kind of roll over, or you're like, nah, fuck out of here.
I find it so interesting and humbling that you say this is a privilege, you know, because of what you said, that we should have been growing up in the island. I think that's such a beautiful way of thinking about it. And I'm curious is to growing up when your stepdad came into the picture, would your younger self be shocked that you're on this journey now of learning about your culture at a much, much deeper level? Or would she be like, yeah, this is what I always wanted to do?
I think younger me was mad proud to be Puerto Rican, because one thing about New York Puerto Ricans, they proud as hell, you know. So just because my mom didn't speak Spanish doesn't mean that like we didn't grow up being very proud to be Puerto Rican, because we did. I think these are like reflections that I have right now. So growing up, I wasn't aware that I was missing pieces of Puerto Rican culture. That was not clear to me at all. It's something I know now as an adult. But no, I think she would be like, yeah, that makes sense, because she was always proud to be Puerto Rican. So like, oh yeah, oh my God, are you doing more Puerto Rican things? She'd think that was so cool.
I love that.
And yeah, young me always really wanted to learn Spanish. And we didn't have Spanish class in like elementary school. So I really wanted to learn Spanish that whole time. So by the time I finally got Spanish classes, and you know, I was super hyped. I'm like, oh yeah, we about to get this. You know, and then that kind of just continued, and I learned it like, you know, outside of friends and family and stuff like that.
Let's skip to you becoming a first generation to go to college and becoming that person in your family, or the generation in your family to be the first to do things, the first to go into corporate America, to graduate college. Like, how does that all tie in?
Yeah, so I know when you first approached me about doing this podcast, I was like, you know, I don't have the typical immigrant story. But I am a cycle breaker, much like many immigrants are. So I do think that there's some similarities there. Maybe not in the early upbringing part, but so many immigrants come here and they're like the first person to go to college, the first person to, I don't know, speak perfect English, the first person to get that degree and get a corporate job. So I very much have all of those things. And I think, like I said earlier, like so many people in New York are in survival mode. And for me, I wanted to make sure that I just pursued education. I saw it as a way out. So I became the first person to graduate high school in my immediate family, and then college, and then I went to corporate America, and then I realized, damn, this ain't this ain't fun. This is not for me.
What in corporate America? What were you doing in corporate America?
So I was in buying for a couple years. I worked for Macy's corporate. So I was in buying for a couple years, and then I went into product development for their private label brands. So
That sounds pretty fancy, all of it.
it's not that fancy. It's not that fancy. As a buyer, I've been on a lot of different teams.
Is that Rachel Green?
So funny, but yes. But I was buying, it actually is very cool when you think about it. I was buying like confections and trim, which basically means like food stuff. So I'd go to like vendor meetings and we'd eat a bunch of candy or popcorn or whatever we were trying to bring in and be like, oh, this tastes good. Yeah, I want to buy this. That was very fun and I enjoyed that. But what I didn't enjoy was just the structure of like you get up, you go to work, you're at work, and then you travel, and then you go to the gym, and then you go home, and then you go to sleep. Like I didn't like
Rinse
it was
and repeat.
Yes, and that was daunting. I really didn't appreciate that at all. And then I did it for 1 year, and after 1 year, I was like, oh, this sucks because it was the first year that I didn't have a summer off. It was the first year of like real life, and then I realized, wow, just 2 weeks. 2 weeks of PTO is what I get.
Right.
And even taking them like in the same, even taking all of the 2 weeks at one time, like you got to fight for that at corporate America to be like, I'm going to be gone 2 weeks. No, people take 2 days here, 2 days there, 2 days there. You know, they take a long weekend on a holiday. You got to finagle these 14 days and try to make it longer.
For like 60 years.
You know, hell no. I was so not about that. So I mean, listen, I stayed in corporate America for 7 years. It was a long time, but I'm happy to finally be out of that. And, you know, hopefully I can just continue my self-employment journey.
How was that process of deciding to get out of corporate America? Did you have a plan B, plan A? What was that like?
So I have been wanting to get out for a really long time. And I wasn't making any of those moves because it always just felt like it wasn't the right time. And then when I finally felt like it was the right time, I just didn't do it. It was like during the pandemic and I was going viral all the time. And I'm like, I'm going to quit. And, you know, my partner at the time was like, I don't, like this just started kicking off. I don't think you should do that. So I didn't quit. And I finally hit a point where it was either I move up in the company or I kind of move out. And so there was a trip planned for us to go to South Korea and speak to different suppliers to negotiate for different styles that we were bringing in for private label. So, you know, negotiating the cost of zippers and fabrics and yada, yada, yada. So that was going to be like, I think a week or two or something like that. And at first I was really excited. I'm like, oh my God, I get to go on this trip and, you know, represent the company in a way and go with my boss. And that would be really cool. But then I started to get like a lot of anxiety about it because I realized, you know, I don't even want to do this job in my house, let alone go all the way to South Korea to do this job in person. And I just literally, it felt like a hole in my stomach. I'm like, oh God, I cannot do this. I cannot go on this trip. But you can't tell your job, I don't want to go on this trip because you're never going to get offered any opportunities again. So it was either I'm going to take on, you know, this responsibility and really show up in my work in a new way, like some boss bitch way, or I'm just not going to do it. And I didn't want to do that and then end up leaving the company later and kind of feeling guilty about that. I feel like it would have screwed over my team. So I was like, I need to just let them know that I don't want to go on this trip and I'm going to be quitting. So it kind of worked out because that happened, I think around March, that conversation that I told them I'm quitting. Was it March?
Was it this year?
No, it was 2 years ago. This is 2023. Okay, so we're in 2023 and in January 2023, this was just on a whim, right? So this is like crazy how the universe works. I did a comedy show and someone came to the comedy show and she's like, oh my God, I follow you on Instagram. I think you're so funny. I'm like, oh, wow. And then she learned that this was not my full-time job and that I actually did have a 9-to-5. And I told her, oh yeah, I'm in, you know, corporate retail. And she was like, wait, that's crazy. I have a company. Like, let's chat. And I'm like, okay. So I chat with her and she ended up like hiring me. So I worked my full 9-to-5 and then I worked part-time for this other company. And so by the time I told my job, like I quit, and by the time I actually quit in May. So I gave them 3 months advance notice because in February I needed to commit to this trip, and I told them, listen, I can't do this trip. So they said, all right, when is your last day? And I was like, sometime in May. It was around, Memorial Day, the end of May, something like that. Yeah, I think Memorial Day. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be quitting. They're like, all right. So I gave them that 3 months notice because I needed to still work and make more money. Like I could not afford to quit at that time. So from...
Would you recommend giving a 3 months notice? Like, did you feel any kind of hostility or?
I mean, I didn't feel any hostility, but I think that depends on your workplace. And I was forced to do the 3 month notice because if not, I would have ended up going on that overseas trip. Right. Normally, I would just say, give your regular 2 weeks. But I didn't want to screw over my team because even though I didn't like the job, like I liked my boss and I liked some of the people on my team. So I didn't want to have to leave them with all this work that could have been prevented. I just felt like that was really shady. And it would have been burning a bridge. Not that I care because I don't think I'm going back to Macy's corporate, but I just didn't want to screw them over. So that's why I let them know so far in advance. So from January all the way to the end of May, I was working basically 2 jobs. So I was just saving all that money. So that by the time I quit, I had like $14,000. And I was like, okay, nice. So I quit my full-time job, but I kept the part-time job. And then I also started continued doing content stuff. But then I got laid off from the part-time job. And I was like, damn. So then I had no job. And then I went on unemployment. And then I started getting some content gigs and like hustling that. And then, that $14,000 ran out. And then I had to like dip into some savings that I had. So I would just say like quitting and leaving your corporate job, like it does take a lot of planning. Like get a solid amount of savings saved up if you can. For people that quit and they don't have savings, like, I don't know how they do it. I can't live life on the edge like that. I do not think so.
Especially in New York.
Right. I don't want to be out here living in the box, or living in my family's basement or something like that. I'm like, cousin, you want to take me in? I didn't want that to be me. So I just made sure, like, I saved up a lot of money that I felt comfortable. Also, you have to be a hustler, Like, so when I got laid off from that other job, it was like, damn, like, what am I about to do? And I was like, I'm going to just go hustle content gigs. Like I could have been a waitress or done something else, I'm sure, and that would have worked out too. You just have to be the type of person that no matter what, you're like, it's gonna work out because I'm just a hustler like that.
Right. I mean, you are a hustler.
No, I hustle hard. I've been hustling my whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. So take me through getting involved with comedy. Yeah, take me through that. Like you're doing your 9 to 5. How did you get into that?
So I always start like, I've always been funny. I think I just grew up around funny people. Like my family's funny. And I always tell people when you don't have a lot of money and you kind of grow up super broke, all you got is your jokes. You better have fun in the house, on the couch, in the living room, because you don't got no money to go nowhere. Humor was kind of what we had. We always made fun of each other and my family, my friends, and we were always laughing despite everything. It's kind of how we laugh through difficult things. Even when it's negative, like, and you're like, we should not be laughing at this. It's kind of what we use to diffuse tension in, my family growing up. So fast forward in 2020, I just started making funny TikTok videos and, I was just really good at it and people thought I was hilarious and I'm like, bitch, I am hilarious, and then I started writing and I wrote this pilot and I took this class at the School of Visual Arts online about like pitching your pilots to network executives and stuff like that, and started writing and I was like, I'm really funny. Maybe I should bring my performance and comedy. Maybe I should merge it together. And I say performance because, I was also a hip hop dancer and I was part of this dance company. And like growing up, I've just been a dancer my whole life. And so I love performing. I love being on stage. I'm like, I've always been on stage. And so post corporate life, I'm not on stage anymore. And so now it's the pandemic. I'm home. I'm always home and I'm still dancing and I'm discovering, oh wow, I'm funny as fuck and people like watching me. Let me merge these two together. And then that's how I started doing stand-up, which I did for like a year and a half. And then I started doing sketch comedy, which I liked because I was working with other people, my friends, and it was just it was a lot more collaborative and I appreciated that. So then, and now I'm here. So I did a lot of online comedy the whole time, but in terms of like performance, I did stand up for a little while and then I did sketch for a while. And now, I mean, I would go back to sketch sometime, but kind of just focusing on some other things right now. But I do love performance and just performing comedy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would love to see you in stand-up.
Yeah.
You're so multifaceted. Like, you know, here just talking with you, how there was a lot of overlap, right, between the dancing, the comedy, the 9 to 5, like.
So the 9 to 5, right, was always there.
Yeah.
So my creative career, like in my corporate career was 7 years. So during that time, like 6 years, I was doing something creative. So I did 1 year in corporate America, and then I was like, fuck this. Like, I need to get a hobby. And I started podcasting. So I podcasted for like a year and a half, and then decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I was about to start some clothing company and decided not to do that anymore. And then I joined a dance company because I really missed dance. In college, I was on a dance team for 3 years, and middle school, I was on a dance team. I was always dancing growing up. So I was like, let me go back to dance. I really miss dance. I miss performance. I miss doing that. So I did that for a couple years, and then the pandemic hit, and then I did comedy for the rest of the time. So I am like, I call myself the queen of the pivot, because a lot of people are scared to pivot, or they feel like they failed. I'm just so genuinely like excited about doing new creative things that I never get upset when something doesn't work out. I'm just like, oh, okay, that was cool. What are we doing next? You know, like I'm excited to do something else. Like let's keep going. Let's figure this out. And I'm very much enjoying my journey doing that versus looking at it as like, oh my God, you didn't do well. Like you failed at that thing. I don't think I fail at anything. And I always tell people when I like put my mind to doing something, like I truly never fail, knock on wood. But like, and just the reason is because I just don't give up. It's such a simple, it's simple to me. You just don't give up. Just believe in yourself and, you know, make it happen in whatever capacity. Like right now I'm living my dream. I didn't even know this was my dream. Right? I always thought my dream, oh my God, no, I want to be on TV. You know, I want to have my Emmy. I want to have my mansion and I want to have like, you know, my $5 million brownstone in Brooklyn that I was looking at in Park Slope, and I saved it on Zillow, and then somebody bought it and I was really mad about it. That is what I thought was my dream. But as I'm living and, you know, now I'm in this space, I actually realized this is my dream right now. I'm doing what I love. I experience joy every day. My career brings me joy, and I make enough money to support myself, and I make a little extra to go traveling and support some, you know, people that I care about. And that is the dream.
That is the dream.
It's not the mansion and the whole thing. And I love my little apartment. If you see me on Instagram, I love my space. I truly feel like I am living my dream.
I love that what you said, that you're experiencing joy every single day. And the whole being such a hustler, not giving up, pivoting. I feel like there's so many overlaps with our families and our parents that are immigrants, and they're like, you know, I'm not going to give up and I'm going to figure it out. And like, you're figuring it out to live the life that you want. And isn't that like the point of all of this?
That is the point, to figure it out and like live in a way that you just feel good. And it's really hard to get there. I've put in so many years of pivoting and doing different things to figure out like what is my thing. Like that's really hard to do, and I feel like you need tough skin to do that, to not process every pivot as a failure. So it took a lot of hard work to get here, and it's so funny. Like I'm sure I tell my mom, like, I don't think she know what I do. But I think any immigrant parent, including my mom, who is not an immigrant, would be like, what the fuck? Well, what are you doing? This ain't hard work. This ain't hard work, because their hard work is physical labor, or their hard work is, you know, depletion. But it is hard work. It's a lot of mental strategy in making your dream come true, and a lot of emotional labor. And I think that's undervalued in a lot of immigrant ethnic communities and stuff like that. But I think it's really important, because that emotional labor and all of that keeps you strong, and that's what keeps you going. And I think so many of us come from lineages of people who just kept going in their own way. So for me, I want to make sure that I do that creatively, because I'm now in this, you know, privileged position of having quit corporate America and making my dream come true. Not to say I don't, you know, keep dreaming, because I got so many big dreams. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I have already achieved like dream number one, you know, which is living this life in which I'm full of joy. And I mean, not every day, you know, let's be real. Some days be crazy. But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's my job.
And I think it's also very inspiring to see somebody who I can relate to so much do it. Yeah. Because sometimes I think, especially with social media, you see people and just like, oh, you know, but these people, they have a college fund, or they, you know, they have a huge safety net to fall under. And as you've been telling us, it's like, you didn't necessarily have that. Like, you built that for yourself. Yeah. And that's why it's like, oh, wait, this is attainable for me. And something else you mentioned about like pivoting, I have heard so much in different podcasts how the most successful people, they fail fast.
Yes.
And I love that reframe of pivoting and starting a new thing is not failing, because I certainly see it that way. You know, I went from STEM into marketing, and when I started marketing, I was like, oh my God, I'm starting all over again, which wasn't necessarily true.
You're starting from a different space.
Exactly. But I was like, no, I'm going to take a huge pay cut because I don't know anything. And undervaluing yourself, it's a big problem.
It is a big problem. And yeah, I agree. Fail fast. If something is not working for you, I feel like you need to cut that cord quick. I'm not too good at that. I feel like I try really, really, really hard until I'm like, oh God, it's just not working.
I mean, like, where's the line?
You know, I think you have to really have you have to be a visionary. I truly think to do that, it takes a lot of intention, a lot of discipline, and a lot of being like, you know, is this, whatever this opportunity is it going to take me closer to my goal? Is it going to take me further away? Did I ever even have that goal? Is it kind of out of nowhere? Is it random? You know, there's a lot of questions to ask, because especially when you're building momentum and meeting new people, sometimes like a lot of opportunities do come your way. So, oh my God, wait, wow, you're doing that? Wow, would you like to do this with me? And I used to say yes to like everything. And then I had to start saying no, because I was selling myself short and I wasn't able to give things, you know, 100%. So now I'm like very selective in what I do. And I think that comes with being more aware of where you want to go and being just very intentional.
You know, I am curious about your journey in corporate. And now that we're talking about intentionality, did you ever feel othered or just kind of alone in the groups that you were part of, in the teams that you were part of? Were you the only Latina? Did you see diversity? How was that journey for you?
Getting into corporate was not intentional. I just felt like really pressured to get a job. Like, I graduated college with no job, and so many people had a job and they had all these fancy internships. And I was part of a professional development program, so I knew about, you know, the culture of corporate America and different job opportunities. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that was, you know, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't think I had the right conversations to figure that out, or the awareness to know what I wanted to do. So I got this Macy's job through someone that was like, oh, you should apply for this program in that professional development program that I was a part of. So it just was the first thing that said yes to me. So I took it. Now, being in corporate America, it was a lot of a culture shock. The actual biggest culture shock ever was college, but we could get into that in a minute. But to stay on corporate America, it was like kind of shocking to me, this like culture of hierarchy. I don't really rock with that. Like, I'm just like, why can't we just treat each other as equals? We're all on the same team.
I see.
And so that was something I really hated. I don't like hierarchy.
Do you have any specific examples? Like, did people look down on you, or?
Not look down on you. Just like, there's like a air of deference that you need to give to the higher ups. So maybe a VP would walk in the room and everyone would just sit up a little tighter. And you know what? I don't fuck with that. Why? Because you the VP? And
you breathe the same, you sleep the same.
Right, you take a shit, I take a shit. What are we like, who cares? And so I don't really care about titles and roles. Like, it doesn't impress me. I don't give a damn. But corporate America, it doesn't function like that. Yeah. They give a damn. And if you are up top, people are going to be extra pristine in your presence. And I just don't agree with that culture. So that's something that I never really appreciated I just didn't appreciate that at all. And I code switched in corporate America for about a year. And then I was like, fuck that. Yeah, I'm over it. Like, I'm so over it. And then I just stopped code switching. And I was like, I'm going to speak in the inflections that I speak in, because code switching is not just about saying every R and enunciating every word and saying I'm going to the whatever versus gonna go. It's so much more than just the actual literal words you use. It's your inflections, it's the energy, it's your tone, it's all of that. So I just got tired of code switching and washing down, I think, so many things that I felt were positive, Like, why can't I be here with a New York accent? Why can't I say dollar? Like, if I save the company $200,000 because I did a great negotiation, why can't I just say that? I don't know. I kind of just got tired of it.
Do you think that was like inflicted in yourself, like the original code switching that you just like felt like you needed to?
No, you do need to. No. Not only I felt like I needed to, I think you do need to. Okay. And I think not code switching, it definitely got me a lot of eyes. Like
standing out not in the right ways or not in the...
I think it makes you stand out not in a good way. So I think in corporate America, people don't want to stand out unless it's for like extreme achievement. I don't like to fit in personally. I don't know. I'm okay to stand out and be different. I think there's beauty in difference. Yeah, in corporate America, everyone kind of got to be the same a little bit in some ways. And the more personality you bring into corporate America, the more opportunity there is for disagreements or for people to not like each other. So everyone kind of has to take on this tone of like professionalism, I think, to avoid any personality and just issues that can resolve from that. So I didn't appreciate that. So when I did finally say, I'm not code switching anymore. For the most part, for the teams I was on, it was fine. Like, I always made friends on every team that I was on. And I have some friends from Macy's that I'm like, oh, girl, I'm going to know you forever. I think other teams may have been like, oh, just like, oh, interesting, Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about the culture shock in college.
Oh, my God, college.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Barnard.
Okay.
So
right here in the city.
Right here, yeah. And I mean, I'm like, at the time, Puerto Rican girl, my high school was in the South Bronx. And now I'm like thrust into Barnard, which is like this extremely, I hate to use the word prestigious, but so prestigious, whatever. This environment of just, I don't know, of corporate culture. I mean, I just pulled up exactly as I was, like, which at the time was pretty ratchet from the South Bronx, and I would just say things in class that I would embarrass myself over and over and over. And thankfully, I had phenomenal roommates that, they damn near raised me. They're like, Jasmine, you can't say the word crackhead in class. And I was like, damn, okay. Like, you can't just be calling people bitches. Like, I brought the Bronx to where I was. And so it was like, for the first time, I had to learn how to be in an environment where the culture that helped me survive was actually stopping me from thriving in this new environment. So over here, it's like, okay, you're surviving, you're doing great, you're thriving over here. But over here, that's actually your detriment. So I had to learn how to code switch in that sense. And, I was part of the HEOP office, and shout out to Nikki. She was like, girl, we're going to teach you how to code switch because we want you to win at life. And I'm like, thank you. Okay. So they literally taught me, and I would go in that office all the time and I would tell them embarrassing things that happened. Like, well, what's the problem? And I just felt like I was just very culturally ignorant and didn't realize how jarring I was as a person to this environment. There was a lot of lack of self-awareness because I had just been in my bubble my whole life, right.
This makes me think about, now that you have experienced all these different like culture shocks, and code switching, and maybe even your own form of assimilation, like your family hasn't necessarily experienced that. So so I'm wondering about, like, when you hang out with them and when you see them, like, it's like being pulled back.
Yeah. So with my immediate family, like my mom and, my brothers, from my mom's side of family. Yeah, it kind of destroyed everything, which is crazy. And it was something that I was not prepared for. Bringing education into my life would change me so much, not in a cultural way so much, but in like how I think and how I process the world. And now like I'm a deep critical thinker, and now I know how to debate, and I know how to get a point across, and I know how to make a claim and provide evidence and give an analysis. So I brought all of this knowledge and growth, and when I brought it back to my family, it was not well received in any way whatsoever. Now, like I'm the different person. Now I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the one that's disagreeing with everybody. I'm the one that's calling everybody out on, that's actually toxic, and that stems from blah, 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 blah. And I had a psychology degree, so add a layer of analyzing my family and telling them about themselves. It was never well received. And I feel like it was like I just got transported back in time. Sliced bread wasn't invented yet. Like, it was very difficult. And I think bringing in education caused like an immense rift, because when you grow academically and just mentally and just so much growth, it's really hard to show up suddenly and now you're a new person. And, the family that you grew up with, they already put you in this box of who you are. So the minute you step outside of that box, it's like, no, get back in line. Why are you doing that now? Why do you think the way now? Like, why do you say that? Why do you have that tone? Why are you condescending now? Why? It was just critique after critique after critique after critique. And I'm someone, generally, I don't really give a fuck. I don't care what people think about me. Y'all could critique me all you want. Like, I know I'm lit. So that caused a rift too, because naturally I am combative, and I'm going to stand on business, and, I'm not going to roll over. Again, I have a very like rebellious revolutionary spirit. So yeah, it's really difficult. And I wish it was something that I had known would happen. Maybe I could have been a little more prepared for that. But, that's life. It's not the case.
I feel like that can be such a universal experience for people who, for instance, go to college. They're the first ones to go to college, right? And then at the same time, my parents, for instance, like they also went to college. So like education was like a no-brainer in my families. So I can't necessarily relate to that. So I think that's such an interesting topic that beyond the immigrant and Latino community, people can relate to that.
Yeah. And I would say like, it's education because I went to college, but beyond education, it's that knowledge of difference in culture. Like my mom still has not experienced that. She's been in BX forever.
She's been in a bubble forever.
Forever. Her whole life. She's 65. Like, she has not gotten out that bubble.
She's not going to get out.
She has not traveled. She's never been on a plane. She has been in the bubble forever. So that is jarring now that, like, I'm out the bubble. So, like, naturally, it's going to be a rift, because it's not just the education piece. It's not about the knowledge. Yes, all of that things I said, claim, evidence, analysis, and being able to debate, blah, blah, blah. But it's also just understanding differences in culture. And also, I think, understanding the system, how the system works, and how it impacts different people, and then learning my Puerto Rican history. All of it, like, just made me see things in such a different light. And yeah, I just wanted to say that it's beyond like actual knowledge. It's also personal growth, which is hard to get when you're in a bubble your whole life. Yeah. Personal growth, like, you need to experience life to grow. But when you're experiencing the same thing over your entire life, there's only so much growth that you can do. Then you're done. You're kind of done growing. So it's the growth that caused a rift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So has that growth and being the first one in your family to do so many things, has that journey been lonely?
It's extremely lonely. I would say, most of that pain like stems from, my immediate family. My dad's side of the family, I kind of like rekindled or met so many of them when I was like 18, when I was already in college. So for them, like, they met me already on my growth journey. So they love and accept me as I am. There's nothing to compare to, Like, yes, they've seen me grow, they have seen me grow over the years, but there's not they didn't have me in some box that they're trying to put me back in the box. They have met me when I'm 18, I'm a young adult, and now I'm growing into like a adult, continue. Whereas my mom, she raised me. So everything that I had, she gave me. So to then, learn all of these new things, and now I can decide because I'm self-aware, okay, I was raised with X, Y, and Z ideas, beliefs. Do I actually believe that? Or do I want to let that go? So I think that decision can be perceived as rejection. And, that's going to cause a problem.
Absolutely. And I think what's hard with family, and I definitely experienced that, is, for example, sometimes I do like yoga retreats and stuff like that. I mean, I've done one. And afterwards you feel so rejuvenated. You feel like you were just born, and then you get home and then nobody in your family has gone to this retreat, and they're like, okay, take out the garbage. It's like you're slapped with reality right away, and just like, wow, I so want to be a better person, but these people almost like bring me back. And when I think family has this way of like not letting you grow sometimes, because it reminds them, it's the case with every relationship that's being long lasting, that it reminds them of the growth they have to do themselves sometimes. So us Latinos are so big on family, so it's hard to deal with those two feelings and experiences.
It is hard, and I think that's part of the journey when you're doing something different and like breaking the cycle or a mold, or in whichever way you want to put it. That's definitely part of it. Like you said, like, it's lonely. It's very lonely. And I love the picture you paint of coming back from the yoga retreat, because it's literally two different worlds. You were in the yoga retreat and they were still at home. You know what I mean? It's like when you go to a spa in New York City, like inside that spa, you don't feel like you're in New York at all. And then you get out and it's like cars honking. There's always an ambulance. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh God, it's like two different worlds coexisting at the same time. So it definitely can bring you back. And, if anyone out there has like a family that's super encouraging, and not just encouraging, but accepting, because I would say my mom is very encouraging. She'll be like, oh yeah, go on, do it. She loves that. She loves telling everyone, oh yeah, she went to college. She got this. It's like, I get a lot of praise, but I also get a lot of critiques. If you have a family that like encourages you and like really, really accepts you and is also willing to grow with you, that's a big one. Like, I know people whose parents are like willing to grow, and I'm like, what? Tell me more about that. Like, yeah. And I think that again is a privilege. It all depends on how much trauma you have and are able to release in your lifetime. But yeah, if you have a family like that, just anyone listening, be appreciative, because I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Absolutely. No, I'm so grateful for that. That's definitely like part of my experience.
Yeah.
I get to experience a little bit of both. So I would love for us to revisit a little bit of that conversation of how sometimes parents don't appreciate the hard work, the mental hard work that the careers like yours take. And if we could talk a little bit about like how sometimes we have this narrative of it has to be earned through like really like sacrifice and like blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. So for the first part in hard work, I think our parents, they're not going to understand it. It's also a matter of technology. They don't really get technology, or at least mine, no, they're not getting technology. So I don't think they understand the monotony, or that can go into making a video perfect for a brand, and getting 10 edits. And you're like, girl, I got to reshoot this again because you didn't like the color of my shirt. I don't know, whatever it is. Or the hustle of having to send a bunch of emails like, hey, I would love to work with you, pitching yourself out there. For them, it's like you're sitting down and doing that at the computer.
Right.
You know what I mean? And,
like
my
just
mom.
moving your hand, max.
Right. And my mom was a home health aide. And so she would go, sometimes she would work for like 3 days at a time. She'll do like these little sleepaway home health aide trips for people that really need a lot of help. So for her, hard work it takes all of your attention. It takes your physical attention, your mental capacity. It takes so much to do that job. So I don't think she could look at anything and be like, okay, you're working really hard. She might know like, okay, for your standards, mommy, yes, you're working. You're doing so good. You're working really hard. But I know by her standards, she's like, girl, if I know how to do a computer, you know what I mean? So I think it's just hard for them to understand what hard work looks like in 2025. So for part 2 of your question, I think it is like very much embedded into at least my culture, that, you know, love is sacrifice and everything requires sacrifice, and they're willing to sacrifice. Like my mom willing to sacrifice anything. Like joy. Okay, what's joy? You know, I got to feed my kids. I got to go to work. I got to do this and this and this. So she's okay to sacrifice joy. A personal life? What? No, I'm okay to sacrifice that. I'm too busy. And I think that comes to being in survival mode, because they're sacrificing all of the great luxuries, which is crazy that that's a luxury, you know, having personal time for yourself and joy. That is so dystopian and so sad. But yes, people have this idea that like you have to sacrifice and be, you know, blood, sweat, and tears to make anything happen. And yes, you can have hard work, but you can also work a little slower. If let's say you're in a relationship, and maybe if you're not in that romantic relationship, maybe that gives you 20 extra hours a week to make your dream come true. So let's say you have 2 options. I could be single and now have 20 hours a week extra, and I could put that towards making my dream come true. So maybe in doing that, I will achieve my dream in 5 years. Or I could be with this person that I love and care about and brings joy into my life, and because I'm dedicating time, energy, and all of that to that, maybe now I'll achieve my dream in 7 years. I'm always going to pick the 7-year option. Joy is a non-negotiable for me. I don't want to sacrifice joy. If I'm sacrificing joy, I don't want to do that thing. And it is that serious for me. And I think people just need to think about what it is that you value. Like, how much are you willing to sacrifice to make whatever this vision is come true? For me, I'm not willing to sacrifice everything to make it come true. Like, I've seen people be like, yeah, you know, sometimes you just got to sit down and eat oodles and noodles for 2 years so you could get out of debt. Bitch, what? Maybe you can do that. Good luck. You're going to cut your life down by 10 years, you know, sipping on the oodles and noodles. Maybe I'll pay my debt off slower.
I can relate to that so much. And my sister and I actually had a conversation about this recently. And I was like, honestly, I just don't want to work that hard.
Yeah, and you're allowed to not be that ambitious.
And I mean, I say that, and don't get me wrong, I was like late last night until like 1 a.m. editing this podcast, you know, but it's like, but I want to, because I believe in this mission. I believe in this, you know, but like.
And you're allowed to not want to be ambitious at these corporate jobs. You're allowed to be like, this fucking sucks. And listen, some people don't have creative ideas. Not everybody wants to have their own business, have a podcast, you know, be a content creator or be self-employed. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people love having a boss. Some people love having that structure.
The direction, yes.
And the direction. Yeah. So life ain't for everybody, you know, and some people are willing to put those blood, sweat, and tears for corporate America. I was with a finance bro for a very long time. I done seen the blood, sweat, and tears. I would have never done that job. Hell to the no. I don't think so. You know what I mean? But I'm willing to do it for myself, the same way you're willing to be up editing for yourself. So it just comes down to like, what do you want to sacrifice? How much are you willing to sacrifice? And who is it for? What is it for? What's this vision? And I know that no matter what, like I'm not willing to sacrifice joy. I'm not willing to sacrifice my physical health. I have a lot of non-negotiables. And if that means I'm going to get somewhere slower, that's okay.
I relate to that so much, and I agree with that way of thinking. And the same way that people say, like, don't romanticize being a broke artist, I think that I personally don't want to romanticize being a miserable entrepreneur.
Right. I 100% agree. People romanticize the grind. I'm sorry. Ain't nothing romantic about the grind. You know, I think there's a lot of, you know, decolonizing your mind when it comes to work and what you're willing to do for it. And I think we live in the United States, and a lot of it is like work, productivity, capitalism. And so you kind of ingrain that into every aspect of your life, even without knowing. It becomes very subconscious. So to take rest and to prioritize joy and not sacrifice joy or your physical health is actually an act of resistance and rebellion against this system. So I think people just get stuck in that productivity as like a product of our culture.
I feel like life is always about finding that balance, you know, and you say that, like, you know, don't romanticize the hustle, but yet you are still a hustler, you know what I mean? Like, stating this doesn't mean that we're lazy by any means or that we're not ambitious.
Yeah. And when I say don't romanticize the hustle, I'm not saying there's no beauty in the hustle. I think there is so much beauty in the hustle. You know, you're pulling up your strength, your self-belief, your resilience, your determination, your inability to give up. Like, that's all beautiful things. So I understand like the romantics there, but when it comes to a point where you're sacrificing too much, it's not romantic anymore. It's like any relationship. That's a relationship with yourself, and that's your relationship with work. And it can become toxic like anything else, in which case, no, you don't romanticize that at all. Romanticize it when it's healthy.
Well, you know, to finish off, I would love for you to give advice to anybody listening, to the first gens that perhaps feel that pressure of succeeding, that also have that ambition, but have the pressure of being the first. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them?
First, you do belong in the room that you end up in. I think a lot of people have, what's that syndrome they call?
Imposter
syndrome. I've never had that because I'm 100% delusional. Like 100%, not 80%, 100%. So for like, even when I was like, I showed up to Barnard from the South Bronx, I was like, this is where I belong. These are my people. Because all I was thinking is that these people valued education the same way I did. And they were kind of nerdy, just like me. And, you know, they love learning just like me. That I didn't even see the differences. All I saw was the similarities because I was so, you know, sure that I belong there. So I would say believe in yourself, be delusional, and you do belong at that table. I would also say, you know, as you grow, give yourself grace the moments that maybe you stumble. And I would say when you finally do make it, set boundaries with your family and friends or whoever. I know so many people that become the cash cow because they're the first. And, you know, you have this like immense feeling that you need to support your family and be there for them. And yes, but also at the same time, you know, you need to get yourself to a space where you can support people without sacrificing everything you just worked for. So just set boundaries. Don't feel guilty about the boundaries. Obviously, that's way easier said than done. Get a therapist. But literally, like, work through those things because you don't want to end up being the cash cow. And then, you know, you're like kicking yourself in the ass, like, wow, I never got that, I don't know, penthouse that I want, whatever the hell it is, whatever your dream is. I don't know, I just said that. But yeah, so set boundaries, but of course, you know, do support people if you have that ability and that luxury of being able to do so. Yeah. Just make sure you don't sacrifice yourself in the process.
And how about the piece of that lonely journey?
You're going to be on a journey where you will meet other like-minded people. And those are going to be the people who accompany you through that loneliness. So make friends. They're going to be so important. Oh my God. My friends are like my worlds. And yeah, the support that you don't get from your family, you can get it from people just like you. You just have to be looking for them, and you know, your vibe attracts your tribe type shit, you know? So put that energy out there. Your people are going to find it, and you're going to find your people, but you're going to need them on the journey. Otherwise it is lonely, and that sucks major ass. Don't just do it by yourself. You don't have to do it by yourself. There are other people like you. Go find them.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you, Valentina. This was amazing. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for tuning in today. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at doce.podcast. That's DOCE.podcast. Leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This was Doce, the podcast for immigrants by immigrants.